Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great day to be great, and it's a great day to get bold and make some calls that we might regret later, but right now it is feeling good. Bold call season here on the Fantasy Life Show. I'll have some, and also Dwain McFarland, Matthew Freedman in the house with some as well, guys. Truly a fun show on tap. So, Mr. Dwain, I don't want to spoil things, but I've heard you like TreVeyon Henderson a good amount this year.
I do like TreVeyon Henderson, but I don't want to spoil it. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be one of my bold calls. People at this point are not going to think that it's that bold. I mean, they've been hearing me talk about drafting this guy all preseason, Ian. So, yeah.
Yeah. The Cowboys traded Micah Parsons to the Packers. That happened. Freedman, thoughts?
Wow.
I'm going to go jump off a bridge. Is that cool? Or I guess we're live on the show, so I can't do that. But
the compensation.
Yeah, I'm sad about it. I mean, this is what it is to be a Cowboys fan. I don't really have anything to say, just except, there's going to be a lot of bitterness, sadness, gnashing of teeth in the Freedman household. Like, I'm a Cowboys fan, but like, I'm so numb from the last 30 years that like, I feel that like, I know there's pain, but I don't necessarily really even feel the pain. It's just like, oh, my hand is on fire. That's what it feels like.
26 first round pick, 27 first round pick, 26 second round, sixth round pick, 27 third round pick. Lucas Van Ness, who was a first round pick for them in exchange for Parsons, and a fifth round pick. The Packers are a good team. These are going to be late first round picks. Like, what are we doing? Like, you trade Micah Parsons to this is like dynasty. You trade away your dynasty guys to the team that thinks they have a chance, but they really suck. And you know that you're going to have like a top 3 pick. You're going to get multiple top 3 picks out of it. So the Cowboys just traded away Micah Parsons to a team that what would you, if you had to guess right now, Freedman, adding Micah Parsons to the Packers, they're probably going to be picking somewhere between 26 and 32 next year.
Yeah, 24 feels like the lowest. Yeah,
not worth it.
No, absolutely.
2 of those
terrible.
are not worth it. Packers, what does this do for your odds? What does this do to your power ranks, Freedman? I know you don't know right off the top of your head, but
Micah Parsons is worth a point against the spread. We have all of this mapped out. He's worth a point against the spread. That is a significant addition, and it costs them very little this year. They lose a little bit with Van Ness, but they more than make up for it in getting Parsons. So, yeah, that's an amazing move.
Ian can't even talk. He's sick.
They're top 6.
Ian, am I hosting now, Ian?
He's the best Cowboys player I have ever seen. All due respect to DeMarcus Ware. He had an incredible career. You want to say longevity, that's fine. I have never seen a difference maker with a star on their helmet like Micah Parsons. Have you, Dwain? You've been on this earth a little bit longer than me.
Look, DeMarcus Ware is a good one that you called. I mean, I got to see Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Des Bryant. But no, like just best player, period. Yeah, this is definitely one of the best. Micah Parsons is amazing. I can't believe this. Yeah, this sucks. Bad vibes right away on the show for 3 Cowboys fans.
It's terrible vibes. This is hilarious.
That's why we play fantasy.
The Packers now with this move, I would say pretty easily a top 6 team. Probably still not like uber elite, but like they're probably in a tier by themselves, just below like the top clear title contenders. But yeah, like this is the kind of thing that a team
the Lions
does.
Now.
Yeah,
already did last year.
The thing a team does when they think they can win a Super Bowl. And I mean, yeah, they have a real shot of winning a Super Bowl now because their defense has been the main thing holding them back.
Cowboys fans, you're basically rooting for a Jordan Love injury. Sorry, Packers fans, that tanks 2 seasons in a row that make and even then you may not be able to get a player with those 2 picks that comes anywhere near, even if you hit both of those picks, that come anywhere near to replacing Micah Parsons. So,
and it had to go with the Packers. I know they're not in the NFC East, but the Packers, it's like going to the 49ers. This team hasn't hurt us enough over the last freaking 2 decades.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit, it's not like Reggie White exactly going to the Packers, but it feels a little bit like that to where it's just like, oh, well, this is a difference maker here.
Like, I knew they weren't happy, but this always happens, and they always get something done. You don't trade arguably the best defensive player in football when you're
You
allegedly
know,
trying to win football games.
you know what? You do it when you have alienated them to such an extent that they don't want to play for you anymore.
Well, okay. Micah Parsons traded to the Green Bay Packers. It actually happened. So vibes will be on the mend. We'll see what happens here on the Fantasy Life Show. It is time for our DraftKings opening lines. Well, before one of the biggest trades in recent memory, I actually did want to talk about two other now, seemingly pretty irrelevant news items, but we're going to go through it anyway, guys. Darnell Mooney, Jalen Wright. Let's get into some fantasy football goodness again. We're going to kick things off with the Dolphins' former RB2, unfortunately undergoing a surgery. We still don't exactly know what's wrong. They're just calling it a lower body leg issue. But yeah, won't be season ending. However, when Mike McDaniel says he'll be back September-ish, certainly would not count on Jalen Wright for very long. So, Dwain, the Hartitz bank account issues aside, with drafting way too much Jalen Wright all summer long, this is obviously very good news for one, Ollie Gordon. That said, let's not get too over our skis here, Dwain. We've been drafting all week on Real-Time Sports, and let's just say not many people are exercising maybe caution like they should be with Mr. Gordon.
Look, I think round 11 or 12 where we've seen him go is fine. But we've seen drafts. Last night we saw him go in round 8. My question there is, what are you thinking? Like, Achane is still going to be the lead back. So let's say Achane misses week 1 with a calf injury and Ollie Gordon gets to start. Great. You had a week 1 starter. But this could literally lead to a larger role for Achane. Like, we don't even know if Ollie Gordon is going to be any good. Oh, man, did you see him in the preseason? Yeah, I saw him in the preseason against backups. Like, I don't know that really means Ollie Gordon is suddenly going to be good. 2 years ago, he was a guy that a lot of people thought was going to be a good prospect, had a chance to be a higher draft pick. Draft stock really fell in the 2024 season. So at one point there was a hive that was, big for Ollie Gordon. But, Ian, we talk about this all the time. You can find a hive for any player. Like any player you name, there's going to be some hive out there of people that love him. So I think round 11, 12 is fine. I will say there's some risk. Jalen Wright, he looked bad in the preseason. Well, I can say the same thing about Ollie Gordon looking good. Like, how much? I don't know. Like, sometimes I feel like we really overrate the way some of these players look in the preseason. Would it surprise me if Jalen Wright gets back and he's actually still the second string guy? Like, that's in the range of outcomes. Again, fine, folks, if you want to take him in round 11 or 12, just know what you're getting into. Don't take him in round 8. Don't take him in round 9. There are better options than Ollie Gordon in those rounds.
Reminder that Devon Achane, while he has been dealing with this calf injury, he is on track to play week 1. Miami did go ahead and sign Jeff Wilson and JaMychal Hasty to add additional backfield depth. So, Freedman, I'll start off with you now with our Darnell Mooney news update. Good news, guys. He actually is back at practice after suffering that shoulder injury in early August. So, Freedman, I don't know about you, man, but I do think there is a drop-off at wide receiver after the first 54, 55 guys are off the board. Kind of once we start getting to that Kyle Williams, Trey Tucker, Luther Burden range. Not that those guys can't boom down the stretch, and certainly, again, have kind of different expectations there. But in terms of expecting legit early season upside, for me, once you get to Cooper Kupp, once you get to Rashid Shaheed, and if he's healthy, once you get to Darnell Mooney, that's kind of the line. Good to see Mooney should be on track now to play in week 1.
Yeah, you've seen Mooney at least do it in 2 different locations early in his career with the Bears, and then last year with a bounce back renaissance season with the Falcons. And if you are bullish on the idea of Michael Penix Jr. really being a good player and someone who can air the ball out and give his playmakers the opportunity to catch the ball down the field, then you probably are excited about Mooney. Because, I know there's Ray McLeod there. There's Kyle Pitts Sr. Does anyone really care about those guys at this point? Like, it's basically Drake London. And then there's a lot of opportunity for Darnell Mooney within that offense if the offense really operates with Michael Penix the way that people are kind of anticipating it will. So yeah, Mooney is someone who is intriguing, and I kind of do agree with the idea of, like, he feels like one of the last players in that tier that you would actually be comfortable drafting and thinking, okay, I have a solid sense of what I'm going to get out of this guy, and I could use him week to week if I needed to. But that said, it's Darnell Mooney. I'm not all that excited about it.
He was pretty fire last year with Kirk Cousins under center specifically. Guys, in weeks 1 through 14, pretty decent sample, Mooney had more receiving yards than Drake London. Now, they were both top 9 in the NFL, so I'm not trying to take anything away from London. And I do think, the more gunslinger, just tight window approach of Michael Penix is ultimately going to produce bigger numbers for Drake London over the course of, again, an entire season here. But Dwain, again, it is a situation like Freedman was saying, we're not exactly expecting much out of Kyle Pitts or Ray McLeod. I mean, Darnell Mooney, if we look up at the end of the season and see he produced top 36 numbers, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I think he has a really good chance to be a wide receiver 3. I'm very interested to see how he meshes really with Penix. Like, it's too small of a sample to say like he's not going to be targeted. But I did think he was a really good fit with Kirk Cousins, which was an anticipatory thrower, right? And that fits Mooney's style of play. He's really trying to set up DBs with his speed and agility and create that separation, at the top of his route. And the ball's already out and it's hitting him before the DB has a chance to close. Michael Penix is a little bit more of a see it, throw it type quarterback. Now he's got the arm strength to do it. But a lot of times we will see guys like that really gravitate to the bigger targets, like a Drake London, even potentially a Kyle Pitts. So I do think there is like some sneaky downside here for Darnell Mooney with Michael Penix Jr. out there. But at the same time, Mooney's also probably the guy that has the best chance to take the top off the defense. And so he could make up for maybe a few less targets by getting hit on some deep touchdown passes that would come from Penix. So it could all end up just leveling out. But I do agree with you, Ian. I've got him in that wide receiver 4, like borderline wide receiver 4 range, but it's just because there's so many guys and there's been the injury. Won't surprise me at all, though, if we see Mooney as a wide receiver like 34 or 33. He is going too late in drafts. Like we see him really drop down the board.
I've wondered throughout the summer if the Cowboys or the Falcons could actually kind of be the NFC version of the Bengals. Again, just constant shootouts with the bad defense. I think we can now safely say the Cowboys profile as that team a bit more so than the Falcons. But again, wouldn't be surprised if we still do get some fantasy-friendly shootouts just like we did during those final 2 weeks of last season with the Falcons versus Commanders and the Panthers. So good stuff there, guys. Time for some bold calls. But first, this has been our DraftKings opening lines. NFL Week 1 is here, and I am teaming up with DraftKings Pick 6 to give you all a shot at their biggest bag ever. Right now, all DraftKings Pick 6 customers can enter for free. Hit your 6 picks, and just like that, you can land your share of $1 million or more in cash prizes. Here's the play. Pick more or less on 6 stats. Share it with your crew because more entries means a bigger bag. And if you nail all 6, you're in for a cut of the cash. Head on over to the DraftKings Pick 6 app, and let's build the bag together. The crown is yours. This season, we're turning up the heat and handing over the mic. Brought to you by Mike's Hard Lemonade. It's time to go hard for your league with our new weekly segment, Mic'd Up, going through some bold calls again ahead of the 2025 season. So shout out to our friends at Mike's Hard Lemonade. Again, always enjoy a refreshing Mike's whenever possible. Maybe not during the show, during the day job, but you guys know immediately after. What a fun time. Dwain, we're going to kick things off with you. I might have teased this in the beginning a little bit, but talk about a certain AFC East running back you expect big things from this year.
Yeah, so my bold call, TreVeyon Henderson finishes as a top 6 running back this season. I've got him ranked as my running back 13. So this is a little bolder than that. Freedman's probably looking at me a little bit side-eyed right now. He's gonna share time with Ramondre Stevenson. But that's the way I have him projected right now. And even in our projection model, when we look at what the floor and the ceiling potential outcomes are here for him, 21 fantasy points per game are the ceiling in a PPR setting, despite me splitting the carries between the two. But it does have me giving a little bit more of the passing down work to TreVeyon Henderson. And here's the thing. Stephon Diggs, old wide receiver coming off an ACL. I expect he'll get back and he's going to move the chains, but he's not an explosive playmaker. Hunter Henry, Ian, how many yak yards did he have last year? Like, how many tackles did he break? You're going to tell me like negative something. He's like worse than Zach. Then we talk about like Kayshon Boutte is going to be lining up. We got Pop Douglas, who's a nice little slot weapon. Like, they don't have any explosive playmakers. There's just going to be this opportunity. And we have Josh McDaniels. While he's not Sean Payton level, he is willing to get these backs involved. He's going to draw up screens. We saw it in the preseason, what a heavy component of the passing game that TreVeyon Henderson is going to be. And so I just have to remind people, he doesn't even have to take over this huge workload to really go off in fantasy football because of how explosive he is. So let's go back to 2017, Ian. Alvin Kamara, okay, in 2017, 120 rushing attempts. He did have 81 catches. I think that's going to be a stretch for TreVeyon, but I think TreVeyon could get to like 50, 60. But the point being, this is a guy that didn't need 200 rushing attempts to be one of the best fantasy backs in football. Then we can go look at what we saw with Jahmyr Gibbs, 180 rushing attempts and 52 receptions. I think that's the range that we could see for TreVeyon this year, okay? And that's still sharing time with Ramondre. We did have Jahmyr Gibbs go on, obviously you guys know, to be really good. And then one last one. Devon Achane, 103 rushing attempts and 27 receptions. Now, his thing was he was really great on a points per game average. He missed some games with some injuries, so probably would have been more on pace for 40 receptions, 140 rushing attempts. But the point being, you get these certain players where you don't have to have the huge role. But here's the thing. What if by week 6 or 7, they're just like, man, we can't keep TreVeyon Henderson off the field. We're just sorry, Mondre. We're going to have to give this dude 60%, of the snaps. And if that happens, that's what honestly opens up like this chance to be like a top 3 running back in fantasy football. So I think TreVeyon Henderson's got a ton of outs, Ian. And maybe this is just hopium because we have drafted him so much that, I put out the tweet the other day. You and I will be meeting in the parking lot of that meme where it's a bankruptcy, liquor store, as well as divorced.
Yes, we will, Dwain. So again, continue to make those nightly sacrifices to the injury gods. Put TreVeyon Henderson in bubble wrap, guys, up until Sunday. Freedman, I will say, though, because again, we've kind of had a situation where we were going back and forth a little bit, you and Dwain Ramondre versus TreVeyon. Look, none of us are going to be higher than Dwain on TreVeyon. He is the RB13 in Dwain's ranks. He's RB15 in mine. You've got him up there at RB18. So you are starting to come around a little bit, Freedman. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I feel like I've just been listening to you guys talk about TreVeyon so much. And I will say ADP, like the industry has moved on him so much that it's like, oh, man, I've got to at least like be respected. Like I can't like have him ranked as like my RB26 while people are drafting him as like the RB15. So I have moved him up. I'm open to the idea that I'm wrong. And I will say, even though I think that Dwain is aggressive in his ranking, like it makes sense. Like you do win in fantasy by getting guys who massively outperform. And TreVeyon Henderson has that within his range of outcomes. Like even if it's just sort of like Breece Hall, his rookie year, and it was an abbreviated rookie year, but like he also didn't have all that many carries, got a ton of work as a receiver. To Dwayne's point, there are multiple outs. I think like the balance of probability, TreVeyon Henderson does not finish as an RB1, but this is a bold call. That's what it's about. It's like thinking about if everything breaks right, how does this go? And if everything breaks right for TreVeyon Henderson, yeah, he could be like a top 3 running back. That is certainly possible.
Did a little research, ground some numbers before the show, guys. And 49 running backs have 50-plus catches in a season since 2020. The average PPR per game rank, 14.5. Median, 11th. 26 out of 49, 53% finished in the top 12. 39 out of 49, which is 80% for those counting at home, actually finished inside the top 24. So, again, for me, it wasn't the kick return touchdown. It wasn't even the rushing touchdowns in the preseason that really started to get me on this hype train. It was more so the reality that, yeah, it really does look like that. Even if Stevenson is taking some of that early down work, TreVeyon should be getting featured on pass downs, and that really is what can help win us championships in full PPR fantasy land. Freedman, we're going over to you. And I will say, man, you've been referred to as the wet blanket here by Dwain more episodes than not here over the years. I like your bold calls, man. So you got 3 good ones today. Start us off with your first one involving 2 players who, yeah, people are spending a pretty penny on in fantasy drafts.
Yeah, my bold call is negative. Like I'm going full wet blanket on this. I'm saying that Ashton Genty and Drake London, both of whom are being drafted in the top 12 at their respective positions, neither one finishes as a top 12 player. So Genty, I just want to kind of be clear about this. I think he has a pretty high floor, and I think he's going to be used a ton within that Raiders offense. And so if you look at the projections that we have at Fantasy Life, Dwain does the projections, I do projections. We both have him projected for a lot of work. The thing is, I don't think that work is going to amount to much because of the offensive environment that he's in. The Raiders aren't going to score all that many points. I think they're going to underwhelm. They're going to have a pretty slow offense. I think all of that is going to cap his ceiling and make it difficult for him to outperform ADP. And it could make his floor just a little bit weaker than people would expect. And so it's like, oh, he got a ton of usage and he was the RB14 because of that. And then Drake London. Last year, obviously, great season, almost 1,300 yards receiving. This year, he's being drafted, I think, pretty aggressively with the idea of Michael Penix elevating that offense, and that the 39 targets he got in the 3 games with Michael Penix is like kind of representative, not like fully representative, but kind of representative of the outsized way he's going to be used in that offense. I don't buy it. And then now we start to have offensive line concerns with the Falcons. Their left tackle is out. Their swing tackle is out. Like, there could just be situations where the Falcons offense is not as good as we would expect. Michael Penix, not as good as we would expect. And then all of a sudden, Drake London, drafted as if he's going to be one of your surefire studs, is like, oh, actually, he's a wide receiver 3. So I see the path for significant downside comparison to where these guys are being drafted. So I'm just going to say both of them finish outside of the top 12.
The London one is something where I know a lot of like true ball knowers out there, the real NFL analysts of the world, have had a lot of concern about Penix actually taking this step forward in year 2 based on some of the mechanics and just kind of what we saw during that small sample size. Maybe they do just kind of force feed Bijan Robinson a little bit more. I think we can get behind that. Dwain, the Ashton Genty part is a little bit more interesting because I am going to show you guys a cool little table I put together. Basically, every top 10 running back that's been drafted over the last 15 years. And it's true, they have not all hit, but they all have pretty much been force-fed the football. The exceptions were Christian McCaffrey in 2017. I believe Jonathan Stewart was still siphoning away some of that work. And then the Bills hilariously only giving C.J. Spiller 98 touches in 14 games after selecting with the top 10 pick. Shout out Fred Jackson for getting some of that work. So, Dwain, it really does seem like Genty would have to really struggle in the efficiency department to be, too much of a bust here. I mean, again, people say, what if he was Trent Richardson? As you guys can see, Trent Richardson, one of the biggest running back busts in recent memory, still at least gave us an RB5 season as a rookie.
Yeah, and I think that's the good comparison. Bijan yet Arthur Smith just doing Arthur Smith stuff. So, as long as you don't got to deal with that, I think you're fine. I think Ashton Genty's a lock for a top 12 running back. I think he's more likely to finish as a top 6 running back than to finish outside the top 12. I do hear Freedman's concerns about the Raiders. Ian, you and I have talked about it multiple times when we did the Raiders show back in July. That was one of the things we talked about was like, systemically, could this offense just overall hold everyone back? Not crazy about the offensive line. We like Chip Kelly, but also think that there's this chance that really Chip Kelly's kind of overrated in some people's minds. But again, it's going to be the sheer volume. Like Ashton Genty 2 years ago showed us what an amazing receiver he is in college. Then last year he showed us how big of a workload he can handle on the ground. We're probably looking at a guy that's going to get 300 rushing attempts and 50 to 60 targets. It's going to be like he would have to be so inefficient to not finish in the top 12, or he would have to get hurt. Like, we're talking like 3 yards a carry inefficient. And even then, like, it might not be enough to keep him out of the top 12 running backs. So I think Ashton Genty's a lock to be in the top 12. I like I said, I do understand Freedman's concerns, but I also do think there's a chance that the Raiders are better. You have a generational tight end in Brock Bowers. Geno Smith is an upgrade over the quarterbacks that they had last year in Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. So I think that that's a positive thing. Jacoby Myers, negative vibes, kind of wanting out of there. Amari Cooper, don't really care, but a lot of good buzz around the young guys in camp. Dante Thornton already won an outside role. You got Jack Besh as well. So I think that this is an offense that's actually going to be a little bit better than what we saw last year. So I think Genty's good. On London, just really quick, the one thing I like about Penix is, while I do agree, I think he's the biggest concern for the Falcons offense overall. He's got a little bit of Jameis Winston to him. He's got a little Jay Cutler to him. He's going to throw this ball to Drake London come hell or high water. He's not going to care. He's going to throw it in there. It might be a pick. It might be into a tight window. It might be a tip for a pick. But he's going to pepper this guy. I know it's a small sample. Go back and look at this last year at the end of the year. Drake London with Michael Penix in the lineup, 31% targets, 38% targets, 47% targets. Yeah, he had a 41-point fantasy point game in there. Another one was 18. The other one was 12. So I think Drake London's fine in the second round. I think it's a bigger concern long term, like is Penix their answer? But I think he's the kind of quarterback that can actually feed a guy like Drake London. Makes me think of Jay Cutler to Brandon Marshall. That's what it makes me think of.
Dwain, I know you love your target share numbers, but sometimes, man, you just undersell yourself because the counting numbers are even more ridiculous. Drake London in those 3 games had 39 targets. No other Falcons receiver had more than 12. So really was, again, London and everyone else. Mooney banged up for one of those games, but yeah, we will see what happens there. I want to try to get some optimism back with these 3 unfortunately sad Cowboys fans at this point, guys. My bull call is that the Cowboys will have not 1, but 2 top 12 wide receivers in Fantasyland. Now, this is a feat that is fairly rare, but we see it maybe a little bit more often than you think. In fact, I'm going to pull up a table right now that will show you guys there have been 13 instances over the past 10 years of one offense enabling 2 top 12 wide receivers in Fantasyland. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins managed to do it last year. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle before them got several instances of Vikings wide receivers and Buccaneers wide receivers in the years before that. So again, something that's not exactly crazy, and just really going off this Bengals example. Again, Cowboys took it way too literally, even went past full Bengals at this point by actually trading Parsons, unlike the Bengals who were able to get TreVeyon Henderson back on a decent contract number. But again, I just see every week being a constant back and forth shootout. The Cowboys don't have a running back room that will give you any confidence to be able to run the ball. Dak to Pickens, Dak to CeeDee Lamb each and every week. Meanwhile, their defense can't stop a nosebleed. I mean, Freedman, do you remember the 2020 season, those first 6 weeks, man, before Dak unfortunately had that horrible broken ankle injury? Every single game was basically like the 2024 Bengals. I think that's what we're about to see again this year.
Yeah, I mean, that would be thrilling, especially from the fantasy perspective. Not thrilling as a fan, but, at that time, I believe Kellen Moore was the coordinator of the offense. If Schottenheimer calls plays as if he's Kellen Moore, who, by the way, should have been the guy that we hired as head coach, but that's a different conversation. If Schottenheimer calls plays like he's Kellen Moore, then yeah, this offense could be unleashed. I'm going to be a little bit skeptical, but the upside is certainly there. And I would say this is sufficiently bold. You don't get this all that often. You get this maybe once a year, once every couple of years. Yeah, this is a bold call. You could see it happening.
Dwain, everyone loves CeeDee Lamb. We seemingly every single time that we do a draft together, we get to usually about round 5 and we have to pick between Jameson Williams and George Pickens. I don't think there's a wrong answer there. And I've even said, I think on our stream yesterday, we took Pickens, but if we would have had JMO, I wouldn't have felt any worse about our team. That said, again, I think the reason why I went Pickens was what I told you. If we had to just go through a baseline season, I think there's a chance that Pickens, man, has 30, 40 extra targets compared to someone like JMO.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for Pickens is, and Freedman's going to be close to me on this. I haven't looked at his exact numbers, but I've got the Dallas Cowboys projected for almost 2 extra games worth of dropbacks. So the intent to throw the football versus where George Pickens is coming from with the Steelers, right? Where they just really want to run the ball more. Now, maybe Aaron Rodgers butts heads with that's going to happen, guys. That's going to be cinema, right? When Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith are staring each other down by week 5 because Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to play under center and run the ball 55% of the time, that's quickly coming to a theater near you. But we know that that's what Arthur wants to do. So I've got Pickens, in a spot where I think this is actually, even though he's leaving a spot where he was the alpha, it's not even hurting him because he's picking up all these extra targets through the extra game. So I've got CeeDee Lamb projected for 149 targets, 104 catches, 1,290 yards, and 9 touchdowns. George Pickens projected for 113 targets, 71 catches, 1,040 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So yeah, I mean, I already like it. And if you put that over into our floor ceiling model, and you get a season like what you talked about, Ian, where both of those guys boom, then obviously we could have the opportunity for 2 top 12 wide receivers on one team. And obviously, man, this thing with Micah Parsons it's another step closer to that. The Cowboys are not going to be they already were going to be a bad defense, even with Micah. Now they're going to be a terrible defense.
You guys will never let me do projections alongside you because I would have 20 players with more projected targets than you guys have, even as your number one.
Our ceiling would never work, Ian, if we let you project. Then the ceiling would be 2,700 yards. That's the challenge.
You tell me Calvin Ridley couldn't get 210 targets out here? Come on, guys. But again, CeeDee, George Pickens, hopefully big years ahead. Cowboys fans at least maybe smile while the offense is on the field. But guys, that is a wrap on this week's edition of Mic'd Up, presented by Mike's Hard Lemonade, brought to you by Mike's Hard Lemonade. Bold flavor for bold takes. All right, guys, time for some more bold calls here. Dwain, if you don't love TreVeyon Henderson the most, I would say you love this player the most. Talk about a certain rookie tight end residing in the AFC South.
Yeah, man, it's Tyler Warren. And part of this is just where TreVeyon, you actually have to pay up for to get in your drafts. In your home leagues, you guys can still get him in round 4. He is climbing. A week or two ago, you could have got him in round 5. You're going to need to take him in round 4 now. But in the leagues that Ian and I play in, we got to take him in round 3. If Ian and I are in the same league on different teams, like you might have to take him in round 2 because it's a race for TreVeyon Henderson. Ian did show restraint last night and not do it, though, Freedman. I have to give him a hat tip. So I was able to get TreVeyon in round 3. But when you look at Tyler Warren, I mean, look, he was a late breakout guy, but the breakout was so intense. 104 receptions for 1,233 yards and 8 touchdowns, plus 26 rushes for 218 yards and 4 touchdowns for Mr. Tyler Warren in his senior year. So yeah, an older player that still scored really well in the rookie supermodel, one of the top 5 marks going back to 2018 since I've started that model. And he landed in a range where we do see quite a few of these guys go on to become top 6 tight ends. And then I think I just look at the offense, Ian. It's Shane Steichen. If you look at what Shane Steichen's done from an RPO standpoint, he leads the NFL since taking over for the Colts. 22% of the plays are RPOs. So what are RPOs designed for? You got a player like Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, doesn't really matter. The defense has to respect the potential that the quarterback could pull that ball and run with it. What does that do? It freezes a linebacker. It freezes a safety. It freezes a defender. And that leaves the guy you want to get the ball to in space to let him run after the catch. That leaves him open. That player is going to be Tyler Warren. We already saw it in the preseason. He already had a screen call. It got called back on penalty, guys, so it's not going to show up in your box score. That's the other thing. They throw the screens and rank 3rd in play action since Shane Steichen has come over. We already saw a nice throw down the field off of play action this preseason to Tyler Warren. So I just feel like the scheme is perfectly fit for him. I also think he's the guy, especially when Daniel Jones is in there. That's who he's going to be looking for. The guy right around the line of scrimmage. We've seen it 4 years from Daniel Jones. So I think that Tyler Warren, my bold call, finishes as the tight end 4. We've got our top 3. We've got Brock Bowers. We've got Trey McBride. We've got George Kittle. I think Tyler Warren finishes as the tight end 4 in fantasy football as a rookie for the Colts.
It is a range, Freedman, where I know Hawkinson and Laporta have kind of been the consensus tight end 4, tight end 5, but it feels doable, man. And honestly, with Isaiah Likely being out, I've got my week 1 rankings already out for you guys over at fantasylife.com if you want to check those out. But I have Mark Andrews sitting in that tight end 4 spot. But I guess the point is, man, after those big 3, there are a lot of contenders here. So, Freedman, I know you haven't been quite as high, as Dwain. No one's been quite as high as Dwain on Tyler Warren, but I do feel like tight end 4 is a respectable, potentially doable bowl call here.
It's within the range of outcomes. And I'll say one of the guys I'm going to talk about in a little bit also falls into the category of like, oh yeah, he could be right in that group. But Tyler Warren certainly has the upside. And what we've seen out of rookie tight ends the past couple of years who have actually been on the field as starters, they have done well. And that wasn't always the case where you would see rookie tight ends do well. But I mean, Dwayne's talked about this before. A lot of the issue was that those guys weren't really getting full-time roles. But Warren has the real potential to get a full-time role. The one thing I will say is I think he has a pretty decent group of wide receivers to compete against. And then he has Daniel Jones throwing to him. Now, like, to Dwayne's point, because of Daniel Jones throwing short targets, because of the RPO game, that could actually work in his favor, where he actually ends up getting more targets. But still, it's a Daniel Jones offense, and he has, I think, 3 other good pass catchers there that he has to compete against. So I can see the ceiling, but I also see the floor.
I want to say to fantasy drafters, guys, don't go take him in round 4 of your draft. Okay. If you go read the draft strategy guide, it'll be updated and out for you tomorrow. You can look at the one from last Friday, but I've got it all tweaked for all the ADP movement over the last week, the news we got from preseason last year, all the cuts. Our advice to you is Tyler Warren, if you want to reach for him, you take him in round 8. Okay. That means because he's going in round 9 right now, round 9 to 10, depending on which site. So don't get this confused. That's just to paint the range of outcomes. You get him at tight end 8, in round 8, you've got a lot of room there to work with. So don't listen to this and be like, I'm drafting Tyler Warren in round 4. Like, don't do it. You don't have to, because the guys Ian mentioned are going to go ahead of him. Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, a lot of these other players will go first.
I was just going to add, like, again, if you manage to not get Tyler Warren, unfortunately, Josh Downs, pretty good consolation prize, has been able to return to practice. Seems like he is over that August injury. Freedman, we're going back to you for your second bowl call. Again, I'm proud of you, man. You really are going out on a limb here. Let's talk some Cleveland Browns, baby. And man, Freedman, I will say, so far, Kenny Pickett out of the picture. If we happen to somehow get 17 starts out of Joe Flacco, I think you could be onto something here.
Yeah, Joe Flacco. I mean, who doesn't want to talk about this Browns offense led by 40-year-old quarterback Joe Flacco? But I'm going to say that Jerry Jeudy is a top 12 wide receiver and David Njoku is a top 3 tight end by the end of the season. Now, obviously, some of this is contingent on a lot of the season being played by Joe Flacco, but in his comeback player of the year stint with the Browns, 6 games he played, he was airing it out with the Colts last year. He aired it out. Over his past 17 starts, he has over 4,700 yards passing. Now, who knows if we can really extend that forward, but the point is, he, throughout his career, has been someone who has been fine pushing the ball downfield. I don't want to say like Jameis Winston-like, but he's been fine being aggressive and letting his receivers make plays. And so I think that benefits both Jeudy and Njoku. And the thing that really benefits them is the depth chart. Dwain, I remember when we were looking at projections early in the process thinking, oh, Deontay Johnson, like he might actually end up being a guy. And then the team cut him. And then after Tillman, who is a kind of an upside player, but also unproven over a longer period of time, there's nothing on the depth chart. Jamari Thrash is a day 3, second year guy who's done really nothing. DeAndre Carter is a return man, and then 2 undrafted rookies, Isaiah Bond, who is not fast for being a small guy, and then Gage Lavardian, who I swear it sounds like a name that you
I didn't know who he was until I looked up the depth chart.
Key and Peele sketch of like football players saying random names. It sounds like that would have been one of the names on it. Like these guys could get a ton of targets coming their way. And we've seen that previously. Jerry Jeudy last year, his final 10 games of the season, had 103 targets. David Njoku in his 6 previous games with Joe Flacco had a position high 95 utilization score. And you can find that in the, I would say, industry leading Fantasy Life utilization report that we have. So both of those guys could just have a ton of usage. And I think the Browns, they're probably not going to be that good, which means they're going to have to push the ball pretty aggressively on offense. And Kevin Stefanski has always had an offense that plays at a decent clip. So I think Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku could actually end up being guys who just massively outperform because there's almost no one else on that offense to throw to. And Flacco is better than expected at throwing the ball.
Hey, Dwain, you said Tyler Warren, tight end 4. Freedman said Njoku, top 3. You just got outbolted by the wet blanket, Dwain.
I know. I did. Look, it's so I don't know why you didn't just go ahead and parlay this thing with Joe Flacco in there, because like we probably need Joe Flacco to make this work, and you're going for the 2 for here, Freedman. You might as well went for the 3 for. So here are my thoughts. Jerry Jeudy, number one, where he's priced is good. Like, so he's kind of like Chris Olave. Like he's priced down so much because of his environment, and the same thing for Njoku. So that makes them fine picks in fantasy. That also makes them very bold calls here by Freedman. I don't think you can get any bolder than this. Like if we were grading Freedman's boldness like as a hot sauce, it would be unbearable. That's how hot this take would be. But when you look at Jerry Jeudy, my only concern is this. He basically was the same receiver he's always been, and he just ran way more routes. Now, to Freedman's point, Stefanski's offenses have historically run a lot of plays, and so they could do that again this year. I will say Cedric Tillman, after Amari Cooper left the team for that 4-game stretch before he got hurt, was actually outplaying Jerry Jeudy. So I do think he has some target competition here with Tillman. And then I think obviously Njoku is the guy that you have at 3. So I think Tillman is your wild card. Like if Tillman ends up being like a nothing burger, I think you've got a lot better path to this. But again, I love the bold call. One last player I'm going to name for you here is Harold Fannin Jr. I think there's a chance that Harold Fannin Jr. is going to take over part of the slot role, because what you said about Jamari Thrash is kind of like, okay, like what are we doing? And then I think he could be playing in 12 personnel. And so Harold Fannin, just a name, I'm not raining on Freedman's parade. I'm just tacking on here. potential, if you're in like a 20-round draft, late round sleeper, Harold Fannin Jr., you get a look at him the first couple of weeks of the season, doesn't work out, fine, you cut him. But this guy was one of the best tight ends in college football over the last 3 seasons. I mean, a massive production, did really well in the rookie supermodel. So just keep an eye on him. Like he might be that extra weapon that they just rotate around.
Yeah, Harold Fannin, to your point,
some good stuff with 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Harold Fannin, to your point, he's sort of like the discount Isaiah Likely. Like that's the way that he would function within this offense, and it's totally possible.
That was the free. We were talking about it last night on our draft, and I asked Ian in the draft. I go, "What's the difference, Ian, between Harold Fannin and Isaiah Likely?" And he was like, "Yeah, they're kind of the same." So Freedman, you're already there. You were ahead of us.
Hey, Stefanski, those early years, they had Austin Hooper and David Njoku, and even go back to Vikings, Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith. So if there is a coach out there who could get 2 guys going, not even having Fannin necessarily eat into Njoku's workload, this could be one of them. So good stuff, fellas. Now, though, we're going to get a little tricky here. Time for some cloaked identity.
God.
Not exactly Dwain's favorite game because he's not very good at it, but maybe it will be a new day for you, Mr. Dwain. I'm going to give you guys 4 clues. As always, you are free to guess the player I am describing after each of them. So clue number 1, this player is originally from Florida and won the highest honor that college football has to offer.
All right, so Heisman winner. Okay.
He won the Heisman, yeah, and he's from Florida. That's not enough information.
Okay.
Tim Tebow.
Clue number no. Clue number that'd be wild. My bowl call somehow has something to do with Tim Tebow. Clue 2. Originally a 2nd-round pick, this running back failed to clear even 750 rushing yards during his first 2 seasons.
Derrick Henry.
Hey, okay, Freedman.
There you go. Good.
Well done. There's the big dog. Clue number 3.
Yeah.
Yep. Clue number 3, one of 9 players to gain 2,000 rushing yards in a single season. Clue number 4, averaged 5.9 yards per carry while scoring 18 total touchdowns on his new team in 2024. I think that's a new record, Freedman. We've had to get the clue 3 or 4 on all of these, so I applaud you for that. And that does take us to my bold call involving, you guessed it, Derrick Henry. He's not going to score 15 touchdowns. He's not going to score 20. He's going to score 30 touchdowns in the 2025 season, everybody. I sent this one in to producer Matt Swing, and he said, "Do you mean 20?" I said, "No, I mean freaking 30. We are due for a touchdown explosion, guys. Here's kind of how it worked out in the NFL, all right? Emmitt Smith scored 25 touchdowns in 1995. That was the most ever, okay? In the year 2000, Marshall Faulk scored 26. The year 2003, Priest Holmes had 27. Sean Alexander had 28 in 2005, and LaDainian Tomlinson set the record with 31 in 2006. And no one's managed to come close since. That's going to stop in 2025. Derrick Henry, not 1, not 2, not 3, 30 freaking trips into the end zone. Freedman, tell me you're not just freaking out right now, man. This is awesome.
I love this. I feel like there has to be some sort of way of leveraging this in the sports betting market. I mean, what you have going for you, I think, are 3 things. So 1, just the overall massive workload that Derrick Henry gets. And then just his ability to stay healthy. The second thing is that he's in a great offense that, like, if a guy has 30 touchdowns, he needs to be in like the top offense, a top 3 offense. And so he has that. And then also Lamar Jackson does not take carries at the goal line. So that is another really big feather in his cap. I mean, he's had double-digit touchdowns each of the past like 7 years or something like that. Like, it's possible. If anyone were to do it, I think it would be Derrick Henry. Maybe Christian McCaffrey, but I think it would be Derrick Henry.
McCaffrey. And look, I like the call. The idea of having to scheme up to play against Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry, absolutely insane. Okay, so I think there's a chance. So Sean Alexander had 28 touchdowns in 2005, and 27 of them were rushing. Only 1 was receiving. When Tomlinson did it in 2006, and he had the 31 Ian talked about, 28 were rushing, 3 were receiving. Marshall Faulk, 18-8. Priest Holmes was 27-0. Christian McCaffrey did 21 and 23 with 14-7. So I do think it's CMC or Derrick Henry. And yeah, if you're going to do it in an offense where it could like really work, it's the one where the defense is so worried about Lamar pulling it and going for 80 as well. Can you guys imagine? Like, it's already tough enough to deal with Derrick Henry, and the what defensive coordinators would always try to coach their teams to do is whenever they saw him getting the ball, to just try to, who cares like what happens, just penetrate the backfield and get him going sideways. It's really hard to do that against the Ravens, because if you do that and Lamar pulls it and now you're in the wrong spot, he's gone. So Derrick Henry has these wide open holes and runways that we used to see Gus Edwards run through and thought it was cool, and now it's Derrick Henry. So I like it, Ian. Going to be tough to get to 30, but if there was a running back this year, I do believe it's him or McCaffrey.
And the point that Freedman was making again about Lamar not being involved near the goal line was a big one for me here. The Ravens last year, guys, had 24 rush attempts inside the 5-yard line. Henry had 22 of them. They're not bringing in Justice Hill or Keaton Mitchell to get those. You're giving them to the big dog, the man that you just paid this offseason. Derrick Henry, 30 touchdowns this year. Heard it here first. And guys, this has accordingly been your Cloaked Identities of the Week presented by Cloaked. Just like we got you covered for your fantasy drafts, Cloaked has got you covered when protecting your identity online. Your friends may be trying to snipe you in drafts, but a lot of people are out there on the internet trying to snipe your sensitive information online. That's why one of my favorite features of Cloaked is the ability to create unlimited unique aliases online. So now you can sign up anywhere, shop anywhere, or do anything online without having to use your real emails, phone numbers, or passwords. You can get started with Cloaked's free risk scan at cloaked.com/fantasy, courtesy of Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, to see where your personal information is exposed. Sign up using code FANTASY for 20% off. Again, that is cloaked.com/fantasy. Three more bowl calls on the way, ladies and mostly gentlemen. Dwain, we are going back to you with a quarterback we have been talking about a lot in drafts. I like this one, okay? Because again, you're not saying it's going to be a top 3 season necessarily, but it is a situation where if this happens, man, going to be some awesome value. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that you're getting like QB 18 to 20 in your drafts. People are just Dunsky, and I think this is probably the best season ever to buy in on him, and his name is Trevor Lawrence. So we've got Liam Cohen coming over. Now, to Ian, Ian and I have chatted about this. Do we really know that Liam Cohen's this great coordinator, or did he just have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Baker was just balling out? Like, somewhere probably in the middle, but we've added Travis Hunter to this offense. He's already finished as the QB 12 and QB 8 in the last 2 healthy seasons that he's had. And the big thing for me, Ian, is you have 2 categories that you can spike in. I've got this man projected for 239 passing yards per game, and people are like, how's he going to finish as a top 6 quarterback? Well, that's his median projection, guys. You know what his ceiling is? 264 using our floor ceiling logic. And if you go look at the ceiling seasons for Trevor Lawrence, they're right in that range. How does that happen? Because that's how we build these models. We actually go back and look at people that have, been at one thing in one year and kind of what's the range that they're at in the next year across all these categories like passing yards, passing touchdowns, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, the things that make up fantasy points for a quarterback. But it's not just that. It's the fact that I've got him projected right now for 17 rushing yards per game, but he's been at 20 or more multiple times already in his career, and he's got a ceiling of 27 rushing yards per game. So he gives you 2 categories where he could spike. That means you could have a guy that could come out and throw for 4,200, 4,300 yards and run for 400 to 500 yards. Is that the same as getting 900 rushing yards from Jaden Daniels and 4,000 passing yards? No, but there's only so many of those aliens that are made on the planet. We've got 4 of them. So the next tier down, you hear people talk about Caleb Williams. I agree. He's in that group. You hear people talk about Drake May. I agree. He's in that group. But I think Trevor Lawrence is right there in that group with those guys. But he's the name that gets forgotten because he's been in the league a little bit longer. Has he lived up to the number 1 overall draft pick hype from, the NFL draft several years ago? No, he hasn't. And I've gone off on Trevor Lawrence multiple times on this show in the past, but I'm playing fantasy football, and he has a chance to spike in these 2 categories. In our ceiling floor model, 22.9 fantasy points per game is a ceiling, guys. If you go back to 2011, 22 fantasy points per game, historically, that makes you a top 3 quarterback. So a little harder now with the dual threat elite guys. They're probably going to put up more than that, but that could put him in that kind of range like we saw last year with Baker Mayfield.
And again, Dwain, it is the fact that I've been talking to you on so many Sunday nights, hearing you freak out about Trevor Lawrence being a bit overrated and not living up to the generational tag. Now that you finally are in on the guy, if he does manage to still bust despite all this, I'm just, again, I hope it doesn't happen because we've drafted a lot of Trevor Lawrence there. I'm with you, but it would make for some pretty funny content here when we get into our Sunday night recaps. Freedman, we're going back to you for your last bowl call. One that, again, is incredibly spicy, man. Cannot preach enough how proud I am of you. That said, man, you might really be off your rocker on this one.
Yeah, I'm going with Marvin Mims. Looking at the Broncos teammates, Marvin Mims finishes ahead of Courtland Sutton. And I will say, I was doing, the projections, updating the projections, and I looked and realized, oh man, I have Marvin Mims projected for over 1,000 yards receiving. Like I need to scale this back just to make it a little more respectable. But he has been so efficient throughout his career. He gets handed the ball, which I think actually helps him a lot. Like he could get, like 10 to 20 carries this year. And that wouldn't really be all that surprising as sort of like miniature joker within that Sean Payton offense. And then some of this has to do with the preseason usage. Like I wouldn't have been nearly as aggressive on it. Let me rephrase this. I was bullish on the prospect of him being a full-time player. And then we saw that seemingly confirmed in the preseason with how it was that they used him. He played with the starters in week 1, rested with the starters in week 2, played again with the starters in week 3. He did almost nothing in terms of like the actual production, but I don't think that matters. What we should be looking at is that he's actually on the field with the starters, not on the field when the starters aren't on the field. So I think he has a full-time role or a legit shot at a full-time role starting in week 1. Devon Vele was also traded away. So I think it's really going to be Mims and Courtland Sutton. And the Courtland Sutton part of this, I don't know. He's old. Like I just like that. That's the analysis. He's old. He's 30 years old this year, and he's never been an elite receiver. And I will just say, 30 years old, and you've never been an elite receiver. That's when I just start to say, like, all right, you've had a good run. The end is probably near. Like we're past the Allen Robinson line at this point, So like I think Courtland Sutton has been great the past 2 years. This year, I think he's going to see, there's this other guy who's younger, faster, and maybe like a more all around explosive playmaker on the team. And Sean Payton just drafted him with the first pick that he ever had with the Broncos. He invested in this guy. Maybe that guy actually ends up becoming the number 1 wide receiver. So some of this is Courtland Sutton skepticism. Some of it is Marvin Mims over enthusiasm, but I think it just conspires. Like, I'm not saying it definitely happens. That's why it's bold. But man, like I almost just want to have the outright projections this way.
I'm just cackling at the idea of Freedman sitting there at 2 a.m. adjusting the projections and just squinting at Courtland Sutton. Look at him. He's old. What do you want from me? He's old. So, hey, Marvin Mims certainly has
old
the
guys.
Right?
I do. Hey, not in round 5. Not in round 5. Yeah.
That's tough. Again, made my small sample all-stars from last year. If we do now get this full-time role, going to mean big things for Marvin Mims. So I like that one. I'm going to be highlighting, again, another kind of stud player, so not going off on quite as much of a limb. But guys, I think George Kittle will re-break the record for most receiving yards in a season by a tight end. He was able to set this all the way back in 2018. And then 2020, Travis Kelce went ahead and got 1,416 yards. Kittle did that in 136 targets. Then he had 107 targets in 2019. Hasn't reached even 95 targets in 5 years since. Of course, you had Brandon Ayuk, you had Deebo Samuel, a healthy Christian McCaffrey. 49ers are doing just fine in real life, and Kittle was always missing a few games with injuries as well. So again, not necessarily besmirking the 49ers' lack of utilization for Kittle, but now, guys, Ayuk's out at least the first month in the season. Deebo's gone. CMC's still there and everything. We got Ricky Pearsall doing his thing. But if we do get George Kittle with a legit career high target total in those 130s or 140s, I think that he could, again, go ahead and claim this record. You look at his yards per out run, yards per target, yards per catch. They are elite enough where you can compare them to wide receivers, guys, and it is just honestly still incredible. In fact, nobody has actually averaged more yards per target than George Kittle over these past 2 seasons. He's 11th in yards per out run, same as between Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey. So I know you two can't even give George Kittle freaking 100 targets out here, so I'm probably not talking to the right guys. But Freeman, come on, you can see this one happening.
Yeah, I could definitely see it happening. I'm over here besmirking for a couple of reasons. One, you said besmirking. I think the word you were looking for was besmirching. I hope the producers can cut that. But the two, I'm thinking of like the parlay of George Kittle finishing as the number one tight end, David Njoku finishing as a top 3 guy, and then Tyler Warren finishing number 4. If everything conspires for that to occur, we just need to go to the casino and start throwing money at any machine because we are winners.
Dwain, how much do you like this one scale from 1 to 10?
I love it because I do believe that Kittle has the unique combination, right? Number one, he has shown that he has been able to be a high-end target share earner. He's done it before. Yeah, he's a little bit older, but we've got so much unknown going on right now with the 49ers as far as their receiving room. The other thing he can do is attack downfield, which is what we've seen from these tight ends that have truly broken fantasy football over the years and also hit some of these really high marks as far as yards. So Rob Gronkowski's in that conversation. Jimmy Graham's in that conversation. Travis Kelce, when he was in his prime, he was in that conversation. Mark Andrews even did it a few years ago. It's really hard to find guys that can do those two things. But the thing that Kittle can do on top of what all those guys did. Now Kelsey's was in this group too, until here recently. Maybe the engagement, we'll get things going again for the juices for Kelsey. But man, he can run after the catch, so he can just do it all. So I actually love this. I think this is a great call. If he stays healthy all season and he has a 24-25% target share, and a lot of them are down the field, and he's doing the yak thing afterwards, he is the type of archetype that could truly break that record. So I like the call.
Hey guys, it was a sad start to the show, but we got through 9 fun bull calls. Okay, vibes are back, boys are buzzing. We're gonna close things out with some last second draft advice. First, though, a quick word to our friends over at GoPuff. Guys, it's round 12. Your RB sleeper is still on the board, but your cooler, it's empty. And now you have 2 choices: leave and miss the pick of the season, or do what's right and go to GoPuff, because in as fast as 15 minutes, your beer and snacks are at your door and you are back on the clock. And even better, you can get 60% off your first order with code FANTASYLIFE60. And again, I just love the fact that GoPuff in a lot of different markets, guys, is open 24/7 as late as you're going to be up. So it's not a situation where your convenience store closing at 9 or 10. God forbid, 8 o'clock. Miss me with that. GoPuff is always here for you. Again, you want to go and look at their app. They offer you 50% off, or cool enough to offer you 60% off. Again, that's Fantasy Life 60 only at GoPuff. A lot of you are going to have your home fantasy drafts this weekend. And again, Dwain's going to have his perfect fantasy football strategy guide updated. Freedman and I also been putting out plenty of content. We will have our ranks updated for you guys at fantasylife.com. That said, fellas, in about 60 seconds or less, which I know is tough to get to with some of you guys, let's go to some last second fantasy advice. Dwain, what do you want to tell the people?
Look, it's just really 3 things. You make sure you understand how many starters you have at wide receiver. The more that you have, the less that you're going to draft some of the other positions like quarterback and tight end early. So it's all around that supply and demand. We've talked about it so many times. Know your value spots in your draft based on your league. Go look at the ADP tool over at Fantasy Life. Lots of movers over the last week. TreVeyon up 3 spots. Isaiah Pacheco up 4 spots. You got guys like Tyler Warren has climbed 16 spots in the last week. So go make sure that you check the site you're going to be playing on and adjust your expectations. And if you see a guy climbing like that, don't be afraid to reach a little bit more to make sure you get him.
Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. Freedman, what you got? Got muted. Horrible start, Freedman.
My bad, guys. The dog was barking in the background when Dwain was talking. All right. So I will say the ADP draft board, definitely leverage that, echoing what Dwain said. And then also buying the 1-year dip. So if there's a guy who had a really high ADP last year, has dropped a lot this year, but maybe it's just because he was injured or something, that would be something to look at. And then this is obvious, but don't be the person who drafts a kicker or a defense before the last 2 rounds.
Amen to that. And again, a little trick for the trade, guys. 49ers and Patriots defenses, those are two that should be there late for you. Really nice schedule, and I do think they are pretty good in real life. Last thing I will say is don't feel the need to fill your lineup inside the first 7 or 8 rounds. I've been helping out a lot of my friends with their drafts over the last few weeks, and I just constantly see people get to round 7. They see a couple quarterbacks go. They have their 2 running backs and their 2 wide receivers, maybe a tight end, and they say, okay, I need to fill this out. No, think about that barbell approach. Think about the first or last mindset at quarterback and tight end. I really don't think that getting someone like TJ Hawkinson is worth the 30, 40 pick price hike versus your Tucker Krafts, your Tyler Warrens, your Colson Lovesons that you can get later. Similar sentiment with Baker Mayfield versus guys like Caleb Williams and Dak Prescott. Again, I see why they are ranked where they are in terms of the position, not so much the overall ranks. But guys, that's going to do it here on Fantasy Life Show. Again, make sure you check out Dwain's perfect draft strategy article. It'll get you ready for this weekend. And last of all, good luck. Go make some plays out there. So for Freedman, for Dwain, for producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, take care, everybody.